Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 594. I'm Tom Cagley, your host. Today, in the SPaMCAST 594, we feature our interview with Dennis Lewis. Mr. Lewis, author of Behold the Cryptopreneurs, and I talked about how blockchain and cryptocurrencies are changing all types of software development. Dennis provides great advice for technologists and entrepreneurs that is immediately actionable, without violating social distancing. Dennis is a seasoned digital storyteller and ICO marketing specialist with a proven track record in both Europe and the United States. He has successfully led to market and exited multiple startup companies and prides himself on his ability to make complex projects easy to understand and relatable. In a marketing landscape increasingly obsessed with shiny objects and overly complicated sales funnels, Dennis still believes that the key to any successful marketing campaign are the words on the page. Are you ready to understand how cryptocurrencies and blockchain will change the world of software development? It's time for the interview. Dennis Lewis, welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
Hey, Tom. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Dennis, this is a real treat. You wrote the book, Behold the Cryptopreneurs. How long did it actually take you to be able to say that word and have it roll off your tongue?
Oh, well, I practice a bit. So, it's a new word. So it takes a little bit of getting used to. But yes, behold the cryptopreneurs.
Why should organizations care about blockchain and cryptocurrencies? Isn't that just all nefarious stuff these days?
The fact is it's not. And I think that's why it's so important that entrepreneurs and business leaders, anybody with a professional career needs to be learning right now, needs to be understanding what blockchain is, what cryptocurrencies are. That doesn't mean they have to be experts, but it is going to affect the markets. It's going to affect your business. And being ahead of this curve is an awesome opportunity to really get a step ahead of your competition.
If it's that important, is it really that cutting edge anymore? I mean, let's face it, we've been talking about, especially about, cryptocurrencies for a while now. At least it seems to, the cycle of things might be faster. But is this really cutting edge? And, I see organizations trying to leverage things like blockchain and cryptocurrencies all the way down even in banking these days. People are talking about that.
Well, I think there's really three concepts that are really fundamental, and all three of them converge in this industry, and they're very important to things that are going to be happening in the future. One is decentralization. The other is the idea of a decentralized bookkeeping system, which is what blockchain is. And the third is cryptocurrency is how the important thing is how we think about money. The ability, what money really is and what the money of the future is going to be and how that's going to change how businesses operate and how it makes them more efficient.
So when you talk about decentralization, is that mainly a governmental point of view, or is that more isolation at the individual business level?
Well, here's the way I look at it, and I try to take a step back and look at it from a broader sense. The 20th century was all about building giant corporations and big organizations. The reason that happened was because that was, at the time, not only the most efficient, but probably the only way that, mankind could put into place the progress that we did. We needed big groups of people all working, kind of in a regimented way to, get to the moon, to build the internet, to, create industry. At the end of the 20th century, when the internet started taking off, what we saw was that suddenly it wasn't just big corporations spewing messages through mass media like television towards individuals and trying to influence their buying decisions, but there was also now a medium for individuals to talk back. And what blockchain and cryptocurrency and decentralization mean is that now we're going to be seeing the ability for smaller organizations and smaller companies to actually begin to compete with big corporations. And so I see the trend as being the 21st century is all about smaller, agile groups of people making bigger and bigger difference. And one of the keys to that is decentralization. If you don't need humongous infrastructure that you have to control and pay for, you're able to scale solutions all over the world at a fraction of the investment requirements. And that's one of the big trends that I see coming with blockchain, is the ability to take a scrappy group of people, build something really spectacular, and see it actually expand out globally without having to necessarily build a global team of, hundreds of thousands of people, getting a paycheck.
So at what point does the owner of the infrastructure, so if we have all these scrappy upstarts, at what point does the owner of the infrastructure start to fight back and say, hey, we're not going to allow this decentralization. We are going to control the center and therefore control, in essence, isolate these scrappy newcomers?
Well, that's the one of the really powerful ideas behind the blockchain, is that because it's decentralized, it's spread out worldwide over thousands and thousands of computers that are working in synchronization to maintain this, what it boils down to being a bookkeeping system. That's pretty much what it is. It means that there's no single point of failure. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to shut down the blockchain because it doesn't depend on any one organization, any one person. It lives robustly. So really the only way to end this phenomenon would be to shut down the internet completely. And I can't see that is something that, is going to happen in the short term. I certainly hope not.
Well, I certainly hope not either. If we go down this path, we focus on things like cryptocurrencies, blockchain, decentralization. How does that differ from an entrepreneurial point of view? How does a cryptopreneur differ from the entrepreneur of the early 21st century?
So my vision is that a cryptopreneur is just an entrepreneur who is leveraging this industry, the blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, decentralization, to make a better business. And the real goal here is that it has to be, like any other business, it has to be solving a real problem for real people. And when you do that and you leverage these tools, which are just more tools that, it could be, 50 years ago, we were talking about, having a mainframe to be able to keep track of the accounting of a mid-sized company, right? Now you can do that with, on your MacBook with a QuickBooks or an online system. So the idea here is that by using this technology, you're going to be able to solve bigger business problems, help more people resolve their problems with less cost. And that just gives you a competitive advantage.
Are these tools for a sustainable business today?
So yes and no. I'm not saying that every entrepreneur in the world now, needs to rush out and instantly build their own blockchain or build their own blockchain solution or build an application on the blockchain. There's a lot of ways to get into this before you get there. Like everything, you stick your foot in the water before you, jump off take the plunge, or at least, most smart, savvy business people do that. And so my first order of business is, I say every entrepreneur needs to understand a bit about this technology. And the first step is, start accepting cryptocurrency as payment for your products and your services. I mean, just something as simple as that is going to get you ahead of the game. Right now in the world, maybe there's 50 million, stretching it, people that kind of know something or kind of in this space that are, kind of crypto savvy. there's another 7.7 billion out there that are completely oblivious still. So the opportunity is right there. I mean, it's going to be a technology that's going to, I don't know if it'll reach all 7.7 billion people, but it's going to be a technology that reaches quite a few of those people.
The downside? Is there a downside?
I mean, like everything, every technology can be abused. Downsides in the short term, you have to do your due diligence. You have to be careful. There are sharks in the water, as we all know. I know a lot of the stories we hear, and a lot of what you hear, outside of this industry is precisely that, because any technology can be used for nefarious reasons. Downside, I mean, there are downsides to, the blockchain isn't yet as fast as a centralized, solution. That probably means that, the best solution for many business problems right now is a hybrid. It's not completely, decentralized. You have to think about what's best for the problem you're trying to solve. But having said that, the upsides far outweigh the downside.
So picking between not going decentralized, decentralization, or some hybrid, is that an entrepreneur that goes down that path mentally? Is that with someone, and let's say in a medium-sized firm, is that someone who's acting sort of as an overall enterprise architect? How do those kind of decisions actually get made?
Great question. I mean, the blockchain industry has a peculiar ethos. Let's leave it at that. It comes from a very, this idea of, almost radical decentralization, kind of this post-apocalyptic vision of, we're going to tear down all of the old structures and build them new, decentralized, and, your car, everything is going to be autonomous. And, I think most sensible people would say, well, that kind of sounds scary and useless. I mean, human organizations serve a purpose. It doesn't have to be each and every individual out for building their own little thing. I mean, I think that there's plenty of room to find a happy medium. And so that I would say that these decisions are going to be made probably inside the organizations that already exist. They're going to be made by governments. They're going to be made by businesses. They're going to be made by individual entrepreneurs who see opportunity and grab it and run with it. So, the world's a messy place. I don't believe in being radical about it has to be A or it has to be B. It has to be what getting from A to B is almost, always more important than saying what exactly is B. You've got to get from where you are to where you want to be.
Yeah, the journey does count. A number of my listeners tend to be people who would consider themselves technologists, whether they're just starting their career or they're C-level execs. It's sort of a broad mixture. If you were talking just to that segment that was dusting off their diploma for the first time, getting out into the workplace, how would you tell them to think about these kind of technologies? And would that be something that you think they have to have in their arsenal for the next decade?
Definitely, yes. And the reason is, okay, I come from a tech background as well, and I like to tell stories. And I remember actually back in my university days, many, many moons ago, I studied mathematics. But, my dad was into computers, and I worked for IBM for a while. And anybody who's a technologist has done that first, kind of serious programming class that they gave, and somebody has tried to teach them recursive, building a recursive algorithm. And I think that is going to resonate with your audience. The first time you sit down and look at that, it kind of blows your brain, right? It kind of goes, wow, how could anybody even invent this? And then how do I wrap my head around it? Well, blockchain and decentralization is kind of a similar thing. You have to go through the learning curve to kind of grab the concept and really wrap your head around it. Because at the beginning, it's complicated, it's messy, it challenges preconceived ideas. So I think it's really important for these people that you're talking about to start that process of actually wrapping your head around, what is money? Money. Why is cryptocurrency valuable? Well, why is any currency valuable? It's valuable because we agree that it has value, and there's absolutely nothing else that gives it value. The US dollar is, not worth the paper it's printed on, except for the fact that we believe it has value. And the same goes for pretty much any cryptocurrency. So, that's one concept. The concept of decentralization, the concept of spreading a ledger of transactions out across the blockchain, this decentralized architecture, and then empowering it with things like smart contracts. These are ideas that, you don't just sit down and swallow them in one podcast, episode. It takes some time. It takes some effort. You gotta, to really wrap your head around it. It takes some learning and understanding. And man, the people that are making that effort now are going to be the ones that are going to be getting the best offers, 6 months from now or a year from now, because they have this ability.
Dennis, what was your journey to get there?
My journey, well, like all great journeys, it was kind of by accident. I mentioned I have a tech background. I studied math. But for most of my career, I've been what I consider a storyteller. I learned really early on that being able to take something complicated and explain it in a way that people can relate to isn't a very common skill. And I've worked really hard to cultivate that. The way I got into this was actually just because a friend of mine called up one day and she said, "Hey, I'm going to do this project for this blockchain project, and we're going to do this thing called an ICO, and we have to market it, and we don't have any budget, but why don't you help us out, because we don't know anything about marketing." And silly me jumped in with both feet. We were fairly successful. And since then, I realized that the skills I brought to the table were in need, and since then we've raised many millions of dollars for projects and have, I just kind of fell in love with this industry. And so my goal and my mission is to try and tell these stories in ways that make people realize that they're important, but that it's relatable to real things in the real world.
You can hear the passion in your voice. Dennis, as you wrote Behold the Cryptopreneurs, how did writing the book change who you are?
Really cool question. Writing a book and is clarifying, because it really forces you to actually kind of sit down and stare some of those inner demons that you have in the face. You have to look them in the eye and say, okay, this is what I really think about this, and this is what I really believe. And that's what I did. I sat down and I said, look, I've seen the insides of a whole bunch of projects. Some of them have been big, some of them have been small, some of them have failed, some of them have succeeded. But a lot of the things the lessons I learned from being on the inside was that it's not just technology. The reasons I've seen so many projects not make it are for entrepreneurial reasons. Therefore, not understanding what the needs of the customers are, what the needs of the partners are, how to manage your resources, what to do when you have money and what to do when you don't have money. And these are pretty common business skills that, fortunately, a lot of the very tech-savvy people in this industry don't have these skills. They haven't learned them yet, and they're sorely lacking. And so that's why I wrote the book, because I think that the mixture of cryptocurrency, blockchain, and entrepreneurship is potent and it's important, but it really needs to be done right.
Is that what you want the reader to take away?
Yep. If I can wake up entrepreneurs to the immense opportunity, and at the same time wake up the industry to the need to actually focus on real problems for real people and not just speculative, ups and downs in cryptocurrency exchanges and market prices and, market caps. then I think that's a pretty significant contribution. And that's what I was hoping to do with this book.
I agree that that's a significant contribution. Do you think that the speculation is just too sexy and that people are drawn in there while others are doing the hard work of moving the business forward?
Well, obviously, any kind of speculative market attracts attention, and this one has attracted a lot of it. And, the idea of quick money is appealing to a lot of people. But, every industry has its speculative side. The other day I was talking with a buddy of mine, and we were talking, any industry, look at commodities, look at soybeans. Soybeans, there's a commodities market for soybeans, and the price goes up and it goes down, and it's, there are traders and they buy and they sell and they try to make a profit, and all that's great. But in the end, there's still soybeans, and somebody can take those soybeans and make that god awful tofu that I don't know how anybody could eat. There's something there. It's real. And we have to be careful that this industry doesn't make the market without the tofu. You've got to have the inside. You have to have some real intrinsic value. And that's what I really think is the key to reaching those 7.7 billion people.
Dennis, if you woke up tomorrow morning and someone handed you a cup of coffee and a magic wand and said that you had the power to change any two things that impact the use of blockchain, cryptocurrencies, any of these technologies, what would those two things be and why?
Wow. Okay. Magic wand, Harry Potter time.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I think I would somehow make people understand the real value of this industry for real problems. And I mean, healthcare, democracy, social media. There's so many ways to take this technology and make people's lives better. So I think by waking up a lot of people about that, that would be one of the things I would do. And then obviously the second thing I would do is I would wave my magic wand and make those speculative markets much more stable and less volatile. And that would help shift away that focus, I think.
Excellent. Dennis Lewis, author of Behold the Cryptopreneurs. This has been absolutely fantastic. Dennis, if people wanted to continue the conversation, wanted to find you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, Dennis H. Lewis. I'm on Twitter, Dennis H. Lewis. The book, Behold the Cryptopreneurs, is on Amazon. You can get it in Kindle version, paper version. So that's where to get the
blockchain
book.
Version?
Well, you can get the first 4 chapters for free by going to cryptopreneurs.club, signing up, and you'll get a download there. So if you're on the fence and you want to see, hey, maybe is this something I'm interested in, but you don't want to spend the measly $10 on Amazon, then go there, and that's how to get your foot wet into this specific book and to kind of get into the fold. So really happy to have people signing up and reaching out and starting the conversation.
Super. Dennis, as you know, at this point, I open up the platform for you to promote anything you'd like. The only sort of caution I give you is that we've been doing the podcast at this point for somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 years. Selling your car on eBay is a waste of the space. So, the platform is yours.
Wow, I could just 14. Yeah, that's great. I think I'm not a big on selling too much. I think we talked about it. The website's there, cryptopreneurs.club. Yeah, if you've got a great idea, reach out, let me know. If you're an entrepreneur and you think that your business could benefit from this, hey, reach out and let's have a conversation. Maybe I can help, maybe not. Nothing wagered, nothing lost. So I think that's it. No hard sales here.
Dennis Lewis, author of Behold the Cryptopreneurs, thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom on the software process and measurement cast.
Thank you, Tom, for having me on. It was a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it.
In Reread Saturday News, while I was preparing for this week's installment of Reread Saturday, I got into a discussion with my wife about people and organizations profiteering during the COVID-19 disaster. When I began to notice I was becoming heated, I realized that this week's chapter was appropriate as a touch point to get the dialogue back on track. Chapter 6 of Crucial Conversations is about how to gain control of your emotions during crucial conversations and therefore gain control of the conversation. Keeping your emotions under control allows you to think and use all of the tools at your disposal to stay in a constructive dialogue. If you do not have your copy or have tossed it at someone during a crucial conversation, it's time to buy a copy. Link in the show notes. That helps support the blog and the podcast. In upcoming events, all of these are online. The DevOps Online Summit 2020, April 20th through the 24th. Link in the show notes for registration. Idea Fest, April 21st and 22nd. Again, link in the show notes. I will get more information about these two great events into the feed this week. In the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 595, we will feature our interview with Vladimir Korokov. Vladimir and I geeked out on unit testing and his new book, Unit Testing Principles, Practices, and Patterns. The concepts of unit testing are important for everyone who develops, tests, interacts with people who write code. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?